A hidden threat is quietly shaping the health of millions. It affects energy, mood, and long-term vitality in ways most people never suspect. But there is a way forward, and the path to restoring balance begins with a simple choice you can make today. Have you ever stopped to think about how some of the most common foods in our daily lives might be quietly working against our health? It's easy to imagine danger in something obviously harmful, like smoking or extreme junk food binges. But what about the ingredient that sits on your table every day, that you pour into your drinks or find hidden in packaged foods, all while believing it's harmless? That's the mystery I want to open with you today. And before we go deeper, let me make you a promise. By the end of this journey, I'll share with you a bonus tip, a surprisingly simple way to boost your liver's health and reduce inflammation naturally. It's something that most people overlook, but once you know it, it could make all the difference in your daily routine. When we talk about health problems like fatty liver and inflammation, many imagine them as conditions that appear suddenly. In reality, they creep in quietly, building over years of repeated choices. In North America especially, our diets are packed with convenience foods, fast meals, pre-packaged snacks, sauces, cereals, and even drinks that seem harmless. And inside, so many of them lies one silent contributor. The ingredient is so common that most people consume it without even realizing. You may even believe you're making healthy choices, but it's there too, slipping under the radar. That's the danger. It hides in plain sight. Think about your breakfast, a bowl of cereal that looks wholesome, perhaps with whole grains labeled proudly on the box. But a closer look reveals that this ingredient, in different forms, is a primary component. Or imagine reaching for a refreshing soda on a hot day. That familiar taste, sweet and satisfying, isn't just harmless pleasure. Over time, repeated intake fuels silent processes in the body that make it harder for the liver to do its job. And the liver is vital. It's the body's filter, working non-stop to keep you energized and balanced. When that filter gets clogged or overburdened, the effects ripple through every aspect of your health. But here's what's surprising. It's not always about the quantity in one sitting. It's about the steady, constant exposure. The small amounts that slip into your meals every day accumulate quietly. And because there's no immediate pain, no clear early warning sign, most people ignore it. That's what makes it so tricky. It feels harmless until it isn't. And once you connect the dots, it becomes clear how this single ingredient is one of the biggest drivers of liver issues and widespread inflammation, even for people who believe they eat well. You might wonder why this matters if you don't feel sick today. The truth is, fatigue, brain fog, stubborn belly fat, and mood swings are often linked to inflammation and liver strain. These are signals that the body is not functioning at its best, long before a serious diagnosis appears. And while it's concerning, there's also an opportunity here. Because knowledge opens the door to better choices, and small shifts in how we eat can prevent years of damage. Understanding what's really happening with this ingredient is the first step to reclaiming energy, clarity, and long-term vitality. That's why this conversation matters. Health isn't built on extremes. It's built on awareness and consistency. And the more you uncover about this everyday culprit, the more power you have to transform your well-being. In a world where quick fixes and shortcuts dominate, true healing starts with awareness of what's happening silently, beneath the surface. So let's keep digging. Because the next part of this journey will reveal exactly how this ingredient manages to slip into nearly every corner of the modern diet, even in foods people label as good for you. And if you don't learn to spot it, the progress you hope to make in protecting your health will be slower, less effective, and could even backfire in ways you don't expect. The next insight is one of the most important, and ignoring it won't just limit your results. It may create setbacks that affect your well-being for years to come. If you start to pay attention, you'll notice how easily this ingredient sneaks into daily life. It's not only in desserts or soft drinks, it's in condiments, sauces, breads, and even products marketed as light or healthy. This is where many people get caught off guard. Imagine someone reaching for a granola bar because it feels like a smart choice, only to discover later that it contains nearly as much of this ingredient as a candy bar. That's how deceptive the food landscape has become, and it's why so many end up consuming far more than they realize. Think of a classic American lunch, a sandwich on fluffy white bread with ketchup, maybe a side of flavored yogurt or a fruit drink. Each item seems innocent, but together, they add up to a massive hidden load for the liver. The challenge is that the food industry has woven this ingredient so deeply into products that even people who make an effort to eat responsibly can find themselves overwhelmed by it. That's one of the reasons fatty liver and chronic inflammation are not problems reserved for those who eat fast food every day. They're increasingly common among people who think they're making balanced choices. This is the invisible trap. Day after day, the body processes more of this ingredient than it can handle. And the liver, which is designed to filter and regulate, is forced to store what it cannot process. Over time, that storage turns into fat buildup, creating conditions where inflammation takes hold. The most troubling part? It doesn't always announce itself right away. You can feel fine for years, all while your body is quietly struggling to keep up with the constant demand. But here's something fascinating. Studies have shown that even small reductions in intake can lead to noticeable improvements in liver function and energy levels. It's not about perfection or strict restriction. It's about awareness and better choices. For example, swapping a sweetened drink for water with lemon or choosing whole fruits over packaged snacks can begin to lighten the burden. These small daily shifts compound over time, protecting the liver and reducing inflammation across the body. And that's where real empowerment begins. The power to heal doesn't come from extremes, but from sustainable, mindful habits that fit into everyday life. Let's not forget the emotional connection many people have with this ingredient. It's tied to comfort, celebrations, and even childhood memories. That's why it feels so harmless. It's always been there. But recognizing how it affects the body doesn't mean you can never enjoy it again. It means learning to recognize when it's hidden, when it's excessive, and when you can make smarter swaps without losing joy in eating. Awareness creates freedom, because once you see clearly, you can choose wisely. And that's where the story takes a turn. Because now that you've seen how this ingredient hides in so many foods, the next step is to unmask it for what it really is. It's not just a harmless sweetener, it's a driver of silent damage when consumed the wrong way. If you skip this next part, the risk isn't only slower results in improving your health. Ignoring it can actually create setbacks that impact your energy, mood, and long-term well-being in ways you may not notice until much later. That's why the next insight is one of the most important you'll hear, and overlooking it could mean trading years of vitality for habits that feel comfortable but quietly hold you back. By now, it becomes clearer that the ingredient we're uncovering is not simply a small addition to meals, it's the centerpiece of a much larger issue. This ingredient is sugar, especially refined sugar, and the concentrated forms like high-fructose corn syrup that are hidden in so many processed foods. It is often disguised under dozens of different names, which makes it even harder to spot. People may think of sugar only as spoonfuls added to coffee or desserts, but its influence goes far beyond that. It quietly transforms the body from the inside, and the liver is one of the first organs to bear the burden. Let's explore why this ingredient is such a powerful driver of hidden damage. The human body is not designed to process high amounts of refined sugar, particularly in the form of fructose when it comes from industrial sources. Unlike glucose, which every cell in the body can use for energy, fructose is processed almost entirely in the liver. When the liver becomes overloaded with it, the excess is converted into fat. Over time, these fat deposits build up, leading to what is known as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The process is quiet, almost invisible. You don't feel it happening in the moment, but the results accumulate steadily, year after year. Think about it like this. Every soda, every sweetened snack, every processed sauce adds just a little more weight onto the liver's shoulders. One or two instances may not cause obvious harm, but with repetition, the effect compounds. It's like dropping a grain of sand onto a scale each day. At first you don't notice, but eventually the pile becomes heavy enough to tip the balance. That's how sugar works in the body, subtle, persistent, and relentless. What makes this even more concerning is the deceptive comfort it provides. Sugar lights up reward pathways in the brain, releasing dopamine and creating a feeling of pleasure. This is why it feels comforting, why celebrations almost always include something sweet. It's tied deeply to emotions, memories, and social habits. But the comfort is temporary, while the impact on the liver and inflammatory processes lingers. Over time, this disconnect between short-term pleasure and long-term consequences sets the stage for serious health issues. And inflammation is the hidden companion to fatty liver. As the liver struggles to handle the excess sugar, fat accumulation sparks low-grade inflammation. This kind of inflammation is subtle, but it affects energy, sleep, mood, and even immunity. Many people live with constant fatigue, brain fog, or sluggishness, not realizing that it's linked to their daily sugar intake. It's like carrying around an invisible weight that slows everything down. But here's where awareness becomes powerful. Once you recognize sugar's many disguises, whether it's listed as corn syrup, dextrose, maltose, or agave, you can begin to take control. This isn't about eliminating every trace of sweetness, but about understanding where it hides and how much your body can reasonably handle. With awareness, small adjustments become possible. You can choose alternatives that support health without constantly burdening your liver. The real shock is that sugar doesn't just harm through excess. It harms by stealth, slipping past attention, disguised in foods that seem harmless or even marketed as healthy. And when you connect all the dots, the dopamine release, the liver overload, the inflammation, it becomes clear how sugar manages to feel good in the moment, while silently creating conditions that rob energy and vitality over time. That's the enemy we're dealing with, a friend to taste buds, but an enemy to balance and longevity when consumed unchecked. And while this might feel overwhelming, it's also a call to action, because the power to recognize and reduce this hidden threat is within reach. By understanding what sugar really does, you can begin to shift choices that will protect your liver, reduce inflammation, and restore vitality. And that brings us to the next crucial part of this journey, where we'll uncover the true price of letting this ingredient dominate daily life. This next insight is one of the most important, and ignoring it won't just limit the improvements you hope to see, it could create setbacks that quietly shape your health in ways you may not notice until it's far harder to reverse. When we look at the impact of sugar on the liver, the story goes beyond fat accumulation. What begins quietly as stored fat can ripple through the body in ways that affect far more than one organ. The price of hidden sugar is not just about liver health, it's about energy, mood, and even long-term resilience. This is the cost that many people don't see until years later, when the subtle consequences finally reveal themselves. One of the most striking effects of excess sugar is the way it promotes chronic inflammation. Inflammation is the body's natural response to injury or imbalance, but when triggered constantly, it begins to harm rather than heal. Sugar drives this by creating an environment where fat cells release inflammatory chemicals and where insulin resistance slowly develops. This doesn't just stay in the liver, it spreads through the body, affecting blood vessels, joints, and even the brain. It's why fatigue, difficulty focusing, and even emotional instability can often be traced back to diet. The connection may not be obvious at first glance, but science continues to show how powerful this link truly is. Imagine someone waking up tired every morning, even after a full night's rest. They push through the day with coffee, maybe rely on sweet snacks for energy, and then feel sluggish again by afternoon. This cycle is not just about lifestyle, it's the body struggling against constant low-grade inflammation. The liver, overburdened by sugar, sends signals that ripple outward, draining vitality and clouding clarity. And over time, this kind of persistent stress sets the stage for deeper health problems, the kind that are far harder to reverse once established. What makes the cost even higher is that sugar is addictive in nature. The dopamine release from sweet foods creates a feedback loop that encourages more consumption, which means the cycle feeds itself. It's easy to see why so many people feel stuck, torn between the momentary joy of sweetness and the long-term effects they can't always see. But the truth is, every small choice matters. Every time sugar intake is reduced, even just a little, the body begins to recover. The liver starts to clear out stored fat, inflammation eases, and energy gradually returns. This is why simple actions can bring profound changes. Replacing a can of soda with sparkling water and fruit, choosing whole foods over processed snacks, or using spices like cinnamon to add flavor without sugar. All of these adjustments lighten the liver's load. They don't require radical changes, just consistent awareness. Over time, these choices add up, tipping the balance back toward healing and strength. That's the true price of sugar. It robs silently, but it can be repaid with mindful decisions. And let's not overlook the emotional side of this journey. Many people carry guilt or frustration when they realize how much sugar they consume, but knowledge should never be a source of shame. It should be a source of empowerment. Once you see the hidden cost, you gain the power to make better decisions, to reclaim energy, and to create habits that support a healthier future. The body has an incredible ability to heal, especially when given the right support, and that's a truth worth holding on to. This is where understanding meets opportunity. Recognizing the price of sugar is not meant to create fear. It's meant to spark change. It's about reclaiming control and remembering that every small shift counts. Because while sugar can quietly build damage, the opposite is also true. Awareness and mindful action can build strength, clarity, and resilience just as quietly, but with far more powerful results. And now comes a crucial turning point. Because what follows is not only about the problem, but about the solutions, the natural and accessible ways to begin reversing the damage and supporting the liver in its vital work. The next step is one of the most important, and ignoring it doesn't just mean missing out on faster progress. It could also mean overlooking habits that, if left unchecked, quietly create setbacks for years to come. Now that the real cost of excess sugar has become clear, it's important to shift from awareness to action. Because while sugar's hidden impact on the liver and inflammation can feel overwhelming, the truth is that the body is remarkably resilient. When given the right support, it has the ability to heal and restore balance in ways that are both natural and sustainable. That is the path of reversal, and it begins with small, intentional changes that add up over time. One of the most effective ways to reduce the burden on the liver is to start with what you drink. Sweetened beverages like sodas, energy drinks, flavored coffees, and even fruit juices marketed as healthy are among the biggest contributors of refined sugar. Replacing these with water, sparkling water with lemon or cucumber, or unsweetened teas can dramatically lighten the load. It might sound simple, but it's a powerful step because the liver is freed from processing an enormous amount of hidden sugar each day. And with time, taste buds adapt. What once seemed unsatisfying without sweetness becomes refreshing and satisfying in a new way. Beyond drinks, the focus should shift to whole, unprocessed foods. Whole fruits, for example, provide natural sugars, but they come wrapped with fiber, antioxidants, and nutrients that slow absorption and protect the body. A whole apple or a handful of berries impacts the body very differently than juice or a sweetened snack. This is where the method of preparation matters. Blending fruits into heavily sweetened smoothies or juicing them strips away much of their natural balance, overwhelming the liver in ways whole fruit would not. Choosing preparation methods that keep fiber intact is one of the simplest ways to reduce the harmful impact while still enjoying sweetness. Adding protective foods into daily meals also helps shift the balance. Vegetables rich in antioxidants, leafy greens, herbs like turmeric and parsley, and teas like green tea or dandelion can help reduce inflammation and support liver function. These foods don't just fill the plate, they actively assist the liver in processing and clearing toxins. Including them consistently builds a kind of shield, helping the body recover from the strain of excess sugar. Another strategy is retraining the palate. Many people underestimate how adaptable taste buds really are. When sugar is reduced gradually, cravings for it decline, and natural flavors become more enjoyable. Spices like cinnamon, vanilla, and nutmeg can add a sense of sweetness without relying on refined sugar. This isn't about deprivation, it's about discovery. It's about learning to enjoy flavors that nourish rather than deplete. But perhaps one of the most overlooked aspects of sugar and liver health is balance. The human body can handle occasional sweetness. It's the steady stream, meal after meal, that causes harm. By practicing mindful eating, pausing to notice when sugar is present, choosing wisely, and appreciating food more fully, you not only protect your liver, but also reconnect with the joy of eating in a healthier, more sustainable way. This shift from automatic habits to conscious choices is where true change happens. The beauty of this path is that progress begins quickly. Within weeks of reducing sugar and supporting the liver with whole foods, many people notice improved energy, lighter moods, better sleep, and even clearer skin. These are signs that the body is responding, healing, and finding balance again. And the more consistent these habits become, the more resilient the body grows against future challenges. This is the turning point, understanding that it's not about extremes or perfection. It's about balance, consistency, and awareness. And once you embrace that, every choice you make becomes an investment in long-term vitality. But there's one more step that ties everything together. The next insight is one of the most important, and ignoring it won't just limit your progress. It may even create setbacks that make all your effort feel incomplete. Here is where everything comes together. Up until now, we've uncovered how sugar hides in everyday foods, how it silently strains the liver, and how it fuels inflammation. We've seen the true cost it extracts from energy, mood, and long-term health. And we've explored the natural path of reversal, showing how small, consistent changes can begin to restore balance. But now, it's time to reveal the most important piece, the right way to handle this ingredient so that it no longer controls your health, but instead becomes something you can manage with confidence and wisdom. The key is not elimination. It is preparation and balance. The body can handle sugar in natural, modest amounts, especially when paired with fiber, protein, or healthy fats. These companions slow absorption, preventing the dramatic spikes that overload the liver. For example, eating an orange whole with its fiber has a vastly different effect than drinking a glass of orange juice. Pairing a small sweet treat with nuts or yogurt changes the way your body processes it. This is the secret that many overlook. It's not always about what you eat, but how you prepare and combine it. This principle extends to cooking at home. When you prepare your own meals, you regain control over how much sugar enters your diet. Swapping refined sugar for modest amounts of natural sweeteners like honey or dates and using them sparingly shifts the balance dramatically. Cooking methods that highlight natural flavors, roasting vegetables to bring out sweetness, using spices to enhance taste, make it easier to rely less on added sugar. These practices not only support the liver, but also retrain the palate to appreciate a wider spectrum of flavors. But there is more. Remember the bonus I promised at the beginning? Here it is. Beyond reducing sugar, one of the most powerful ways to protect and support your liver is by adding foods and drinks that actively counter inflammation and assist detoxification. Green tea, for example, contains compounds that support liver enzymes. Turmeric, when combined with a little black pepper, has anti-inflammatory properties that can ease strain on the body. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts contain natural compounds that help the liver process toxins more efficiently. Adding these to your daily meals doesn't just reduce harm, it strengthens your body's defenses, giving you an extra layer of protection. And this is the real takeaway. Health is not about fear or restriction. It is about knowledge, awareness, and empowerment. When you understand how sugar works in the body, when you recognize where it hides, and when you learn how to prepare and pair foods wisely, you regain control. You move from being at the mercy of hidden habits to being in charge of your future vitality. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide to make one better choice. Imagine a life with more energy, clearer focus, lighter moods, and greater resilience. That is what awaits when you take these steps. The liver, once freed from overload, responds with renewed strength. Inflammation calms. The body functions as it was meant to, supporting you rather than slowing you down. That's the promise of awareness put into action. So let this be your motivation. Every sip, every bite, every choice is an opportunity. You don't have to be perfect. You only have to be consistent. Celebrate small wins, share your knowledge, and inspire others to join you. Together, we can create a ripple of healthier habits that extends far beyond ourselves. If this message has helped you, take a moment to support this journey of shared knowledge. Share this with someone who could benefit. Leave a like to spread the word, and subscribe to keep learning together. Because the more we share, the stronger we all become. This is how we build a healthier future, one informed choice at a time.